Good morning. It's May 22nd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the Yoon Biden-Kishida talks at the G7 Hiroshima summit. The leaders of South Korea and the United States and Japan agreed to upgrade their coordination to a new level. Biden also invites Yoon and Kishida to Washington for another three-way summit. Also in Hiroshima, Biden says he's seeking less frosty ties with China. He said the G7 is not looking to decouple from China, but to de-risk and diversify its relationship with Beijing. And the 21-member South Korean delegation will begin their inspection of the Fukushima wastewater on Monday with a visit to the Tokyo Electric Power Company that runs the plant. They say the mission is to make the South Korean public feel safe. We begin this morning with the G7 Hiroshima summit. The leaders of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan sat down again 6 months after their last talks in Cambodia. It was a short but a dense meeting where they agreed to upgrade their strategic coordination to a new level. Our Pei-eun-ji starts us off.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol met with U.S. President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Hiroshima. This is the first time in 6 months that they've met since November last year when they met on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Cambodia. Citing a U.S. official, Reuters reported that during Sunday's talks, Biden invited his South Korean and Japanese counterparts for another meeting in Washington. The spokesperson for Seoul's presidential office, Lee Do-woon, said in a statement that the three leaders decided to strengthen their strategic partnership to bolster deterrence against North Korean threats and to reinforce the rules-based international order. He explained that the three sides agreed to further cooperate on trilateral security cooperation, such as sharing North Korean missile warning information in real time. He added that they also discussed strengthening cooperation on their Indo-Pacific strategies and economic security. In a separate statement, the White House said Biden commended Yoon and Kishida on their courageous work to improve bilateral ties, noting that their trilateral partnership and the Indo-Pacific are stronger because of their efforts. It also said the three leaders discussed ways to take their trilateral cooperation to new heights, including joint collaboration in the face of North Korea's illicit nuclear and missile threats. Sunday's meeting lasted less than 5 minutes as they were on a tight schedule, primarily because of their separate meetings with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is also in Hiroshima to attend the G7 summit. Last November, the three leaders agreed to share missile warning data to help strengthen missile defense capabilities. Pei-eun-ji, Arirang News.
Following the G7 summit in Hiroshima, President Yoon Suk-yeol returned to Seoul, where he headed to a bilateral summit with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz as soon as he landed. Our President's Office correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
South Korea and Germany have agreed to increase supply chain cooperation in defense and high-tech areas. They're looking to establish a deal to protect military secrets to boost cooperation on defense technologies. President Yoon Suk-yeol and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz held bilateral talks in Seoul on Sunday, following the three-day G7 summit in Hiroshima. Speaking at a joint press conference, the two leaders stressed the importance of building economic resilience as both economies are highly dependent on exports and are facing systemic changes in global supply chains.
그리고 독일과 우리 대한민국과의 이런 협력은 인태지역 내에서도 영내 안보 그리고 영내의 어떤 공익적인 그런 아젠다, 뭐 기후라든지 그리고 보건이라든지 이런 거에 대한 협력 분야가 많이 있습니다. 독일이 특히 신재생 그 에너지 기술이 앞서 있고 또 세계 유수의 이런 제약 회사들이 있기 때문에 한국과 협력할 수 있는 분야가 많이 있습니다.
Scholz further raised the need to reduce economic dependency on China, highlighting partnerships with countries like South Korea and Japan.
We will also cooperate with South Korea, especially in the field of electric vehicle and battery production. In particular, we will strengthen cooperation with the Republic of Korea by strengthening our innovation capacity in the semiconductor sector.
Notably, Yoon and Schultz agreed to quickly establish a military secret protection agreement to increase cooperation in the defense industry. South Korea and Germany rank among the world's 8 largest arms exporters as of 2022. Also, as the two governments are both pursuing a carbon-neutral future, Yoon noted that Seoul decided to join the G7's climate club spearheaded by the German Chancellor. With this year marking the 140th anniversary of Korea-Germany relations and 60 years since Korean guest workers headed to Germany as nurses and miners, Schulz is the first incumbent German leader to visit Seoul since 1993. Noting how Germany had also experienced national division but unified some 33 years ago, Schulz conveyed his sympathy and support for peace on the Korean peninsula and the complete denuclearization of North Korea. Having also discussed the Russian invasion of Ukraine, both leaders expressed their solidarity with Kyiv and pledged continued support for the people of Ukraine. As countries that have both experienced the plight of division in modern history, President Yoon said the two nations should grow ever closer as they move into the future, building a bridge of solidarity for peace and prosperity across Europe and Asia. Oseong, Arirang News.
And wrapping up his trip to Hiroshima, U.S. President Joe Biden noted a shift in ties with Beijing will come shortly. And the American leader also pointed out Ukraine will not use F-16 fighter jets to move into Russian territory. For more on Biden's remarks, Lee Seung-jae reports.
After the 3-day G7 summit in Hiroshima, U.S. President Joe Biden held a press conference on Sunday to discuss key issues discussed with other world leaders in Japan. There, Biden said the group of 7 leaders had agreed to diversify supply chains to reduce dependence on China, stressing that they're not trying to decouple from Beijing. And despite U.S.-China relations being ever so frosty, especially since the diplomatic tensions caused when the U.S. shot down a Chinese balloon that flew over sensitive military sites, the U.S. leader expects relations to thaw very shortly. Still, Biden stressed that the U.S. refuses to trade certain items with China over concerns that such goods can be used to produce nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction. Meanwhile, Biden touched upon the potential use of F-16 fighter jets by Ukraine as G7 leaders agreed to joint allied training programs for Ukrainian pilots. While no discussions on the actual delivery of F-16s were mentioned, Biden said that he had received a flat assurance from Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky that any F-16s received from their Western allies will not be used to go into Russian territory.
I have a flat assurance from Zelensky that they will not use it to go on and move into Russian geographic territory. But wherever Russian troops are within Ukraine in the area, they would be able to do that.
Biden says it's highly unlikely the planes would be used in any Ukrainian offensives in the coming weeks, but added that Ukraine would need such weapons to continue to defend itself from Russia. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Russia and China have both hit back against the G7 summit and the joint statement that followed. According to Reuters on Sunday, Russia's foreign ministry said that by inviting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the summit turned out to be a propaganda show. It also said that the decisions taken only aim to contain both Russia and China, adding that it undermines global stability. Meanwhile, after the G7 addressed what's been perceived as China's economic coercion, China accused the U.S. of politicizing economy and trade. It expressed a strong objection to the G7's interference in their internal affairs, stating that Taiwan is an internal matter. It also summoned the Japanese ambassador to China for overhyping China-related issues. Meeting on the sidelines of the G7 Hiroshima summit, the leaders of South Korea, the U.S. and Japan agreed to upgrade their strategic cooperation. There, President Joe Biden also asked Yoon and Kishida to come to D.C. for another round of trilateral talks. For more, let's turn to Professor An Jun-sung. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
So first off, no joint statement was issued from the three sides at this time. In fact, the meeting itself was reportedly quite short, right? And now, what's your take on the talk this time? Any significance of the trilateral meetup?
Yeah, well, I think that it was too short to be, called as a trilateral meeting because it took less than 2 minutes. So I guess it's more like, very, exchanging ideas, right? Basically talks, hello, say hello. And then there was a difference between the Japanese and Korean media on how to describe that event. And Japanese media described as a, brief exchange of opinion with photograph, whereas the Korean media described it as the joint trilateral meeting. So it was very brief, and then I think that the main talks, basically what they're saying was that Joe Biden invited two leaders to the another round of trilateral meeting in D.C. Well, not this in U.S. right?
Right, short, but they did make sure to make some time to reaffirm their commitment on mainly security issues. Now, talking of security, the three leaders agreed to upgrade their cooperation to a new level in areas including sharing real-time North Korea missile information. Now, Professor, to what extent do you think they came to agree on beefing up their cooperation in that field?
Well, that's a very interesting question because actually I reviewed the entire text of the Prumpet, the trilateral meeting, and then there was three issues about here, three areas of cooperation, right? First was DPRK, the North Korea, and then Ukraine, and obviously it's Taiwan. And in respect of the DPRK issue, the joint statement mentioned two things: a joint military exercise, and then the missile data sharing, information data sharing with the other three nations. But however, that my concern is that there's a different perspective. Public view on the sentiment, I guess, is on the two issues. About first one about the military, the military data exchange, maybe socially acceptable in Korea, but the second one about joint exercise, military exercise, if the Japanese, the military military exercise, that's be a big issue in Korea. I think that's things we have to see. And then I'm not sure about how how U.S. government approaching it about in this upgrade relations in terms of joint cooperation on security issue.
Right. And going back to what you briefly mentioned earlier, President Biden reportedly said he's invited Yoon and Kishida to D.C. for another trilateral sit-down. Now, Professor An, what's the significance behind the invitation this time then?
Well, I guess that, I just, because I reviewed that entire text of the Prumpet joint statement, and actually it's not really the DPRK specific. It's more like just, kind of reflecting how the U.S. government looking at the current global issues, right, including Ukraine, right, and Taiwan, which is not really directly related to the Korean national interest, right. So it's more like the thing. I think that three countries have a different perspective on the same issue. Although they had a joint statement last November in Prumpet, Cambodia, but they have different view on perspective on the issue. So we'll have to see what kind of the card that Joe Biden will play, show up next time in D.C.
Right, maybe another round of trilateral talks in D.C. next time where they can spend more than 2 minutes or 5 minutes to talk or delve deeper into those security talks. Now, in the meantime, Professor An, then what can we look forward to or expect from the three sides from now on? I mean, we can talk about the security cooperation or in any other fields. What do you think?
I think my personal take is the U.S. concern was that it's not about how three countries cooperate in terms of their pending issue like the North Korean nuclear threat, but it's more like the concern is that the bilateral relations between Korea and Japan. And so I guess that reportedly Joe Biden made a comment saying that both leaders Yoon and Kishida had a courageous act something, right? So we'll have to see. Perhaps from the U.S. government perspective, that's a courageous movement, but from the the domestic perspective in both countries like Japan and Korea, we'll have to see how the public receive it and perceive it as what's happening and understanding what's going on. That's a different issue, and they have a different political position on the the trilateral progress.
Right, rather short and brief, but indeed a dense meeting where they did reaffirm their commitment, a security commitment.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's very important. I think there's a three-party agree on the bottom line is that they agree on the threat of the North Korean nuclear and missile, the threat, right? That's the one thing for sure. But however,
Right.
how they implemented the trilateral, progress, that's the different issue.
Right. All right, Professor An Jung-sang, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
The team of South Korean inspectors who will look into the safety of the Fukushima wastewater discharge will hold a meeting with relevant officials in Japan on Monday before inspections begin. The 21-member team, led by Nuclear Safety and Security Commission Chairman Yoo Guk-ki, will meet with Tokyo Electric Power Company, which runs a plant, as well as Japan's Industry Ministry and the Nuclear Regulation Authority. Following their Monday meeting, the South Korean delegation will inspect the crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant on Tuesday and Wednesday and have in-depth discussions on Thursday. The countdown has begun for South Korea's momentous third launch of its homegrown space rocket, the Nuri. Adding to the excitement is the private sector's very first participation in the project. Our Shin Se-byuk has the story.
South Korea's space industry is reaching new heights. With the upcoming third launch of the Nuri space rocket comes the debut of private entities being involved in space exploration. Hanwha Aerospace secured the technology transfer and project management for Nuri last year. The company will receive vital technologies from the Korea Aerospace Research Institute, enabling it to oversee the next 4 Nuri rocket launches, including this Wednesday's. In addition, Hanwha will invest 50 billion won, or over $37 million by 2025, to establish a rocket assembly facility in Suncheon and core component manufacturing facilities in Goheung, both Jeollanam-do province. Through this technology transfer, Hanwha aims to emerge as a comprehensive solution provider in the space industry.
Our goal is to provide comprehensive space solutions, leveraging our launch service expertise and relationships with our sister companies. This entails building a strong space industry value chain, including satellite manufacturing, space transportation, and exploration.
Bringing the private sector is part of a government scheme to enhance the technological reliability of the Nuri rocket and create a self-sustaining space industrial ecosystem. This was inspired by NASA's technology transfer to SpaceX, which has emerged as one of the world's leading aerospace companies. One expert explains that collaboration between the public and private sectors could lead to incredible innovation, but without soaring costs.
SpaceX's Falcon 9 is capable of deploying a 23-ton payload in a single launch, enabling cost-effective satellite deployment. Moreover, its highly advanced reusable rocket engines further drive cost reduction.
However, the expert expressed doubts about Korea's potential to outperform other countries given its relatively late start in the field.
Nuri is an impressive feat considering South Korea's late entry into space technology. However, looking to the current blueprint, South Korea may face challenges in developing reusable engines in the near future, a technology that has already been mastered by SpaceX. This makes it unlikely for Korea to gain a competitive edge.
In the quest to foster innovative, homegrown space companies, the expert highlights the need for a robust infrastructure capable of overcoming challenges and setbacks. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in El Salvador, where at least 12 people have been killed and dozens injured in a deadly crowd crush at a football stadium in the capital, San Salvador. Now, the incident took place on Saturday evening local time, right ahead of a Salvadoran quarter-final football league match between Alianza and FAS at the Cuscatlan Stadium. Play was stopped 16 minutes after kickoff and the match has been postponed. Authorities say fans knocked down the stadium's entrance gate after it was closed ahead of the match starting. They have linked the crowd crush to the overselling of stadium seats and fake tickets to the match. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele has announced a criminal investigation to be carried out by the National Police and the Attorney General's office. Now, in Mexico, at least 10 people have been killed and another 10 wounded during a shooting at an off-road car rally. The incident on Saturday afternoon local time took place near the port city of Ensenada on the last day of a two-day all-terrain car rally. Local officials suggest it may have been a gunfight between rival gangs, citing evidence of cross-shooting found at the scene. The shooting started when multiple gunmen from two vehicles opened fire on the rally's participants and then fled the area. The incident triggered the mobilization of Mexico's Army, Navy, and both state and local police. So far, no arrests have been made. Turning over to Italy, climate activists in the capital city of Rome turned the iconic Trevi Fountain black over the weekend. Protesting government subsidies on fossil fuels on Sunday local time, 7 activists from the Ultima Generazione organization poured diluted charcoal into the water. They linked their protest to the recent deadly floods in the Emilia-Romagna region, where at least 14 people were killed and 36,000 were left homeless. The group also claimed that 1 in 4 houses in Italy is at risk from flooding. The Trevi Fountain is a popular tourist attraction where visitors from around the world toss coins into the water so that they may return to Rome someday. And finally, a guitar played and smashed by late Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain has been auctioned off for just under $600,000. The instrument, a black Fender Stratocaster, was initially estimated to go under the hammer for around $60,000 to $80,000. But it shattered expectations when it was auctioned off on Saturday in the Hard Rock Cafe in New York City as part of the 3-day Music Icons auction hosted by Julian's. Although it's no longer playable, the guitar has been put back together and features signatures by all 3 original band members of the band. The guitar was reportedly smashed in the early 1990s while Nirvana was working on their breakout album Nevermind. Cobain took his own life in April 1994.
Good morning. It was a scorching Saturday, then a breezy Sunday for the capital. And to start off the new week, upper central regions will have early summer warmth again under sunnier skies, while the rest of the country will have cooler air hovering in the low 20s this afternoon with more cloud coverage. Other than Jeju Island and the Jeollado provinces, air quality is bad in central parts of the country and the Gyeongsang-do provinces due to yellow dust, with dust advisories issued in Incheon and Gangwon-do province. Sadly, air quality will get worse as the day goes on today. Meanwhile, due to atmospheric instability, there could be some passing rain in inland areas. Rain could be followed by thunder and lightning during the day. Well, there's a lot going on today weather-wise. Seoul is a high of 27 degrees, which is 5 degrees higher than yesterday, while Daejeon and Daegu will go up to just 21 degrees. Now, it's going to be warmer than normal this week under mostly sunny skies for the first half of the week. That's Korea for you. Here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. Thanks for watching.